Denver Mayor Mike Johnston has laid out a plan to make Denver what he calls the capital of the New West. It's an ambitious vision aimed at addressing a lot of Denverites' most common concerns and criticisms with the city as it stands here in 2025. And it also comes at a time where there is a massive budget shortfall in the city of Denver, and the city is planning significant layoffs to its workforce. We're going to take a look at what Mayor Johnston said, how feasible the plan is, and what it's supposed to actually address, and how those things are going to be addressed, i.e. funded. What are the realistic possibilities of these things actually occurring? Let's dive in. So I'm going to start here with the Denverite article summing up the speech. So this plan that he laid out happened as part of his State of the City speech, which basically marked the midway point of the mayor's first term. So the mayor starts by asking, how do you build a city that's vibrant, affordable, and safe for all of us so that 150 years from now, our grandkids will look back with pride at how our innovation and ingenuity and, yes, inclusion proudly established a new chapter of Denver as the capital of the New West. So first of all, Denver is the capital of the New West. I love that vision. I, of course, am in the bag for Denver. I've lived here for a long time. I do this channel. But what makes more sense than that? Really, Denver, considering what it is, should be the capital of the Western region. Same way Chicago is the capital of the Midwest, and New York City is, of course, the capital of the Northeast. So as far as the plan, as the vision, I'm on board, and honestly, I don't know who in the city of Denver wouldn't be. But what actually does he want to do to get us there? So as far as I can tell, there are three main concerns or criticisms that people in Denver have about where the city is right now. And these concerns, criticisms, drive a lot of the anti-Denver sentiment that's out there. Now, if you're online a lot, I think it can seem like people are more negative than they are in real life because that's the internet, right? So overall, in the real world, I think people still do view Denver very favorably. But of course, it's had its struggles lately, and it continues to have those struggles, even if some of them are inching towards a solution. So the big three things to me are homelessness, affordability, especially when it comes to housing, and crime, and or the perception of crime. And so interestingly enough, as we get into the article, it says, nearly half of Johnston's speech focused on Denver's twin housing and homelessness crisis. So right off the bat, he's addressing two of those big ones. And why wouldn't he? Of course, the discourse around these things really has dominated his first term, and he ran on a platform, at the very least, of fixing homelessness. He described the city's successes in clearing out homeless encampments and creating new support programs, but also said the city would crack down on quality of life crimes, such as public drug use and theft, matching outreach with enforcement. So by the time we get to the end of that paragraph, he's addressing the third problem I laid out. And this next quote is interesting to me. He says, "We know the best path forward is not an endless cycle of being on the streets, going to the hospital and landing in jail, but connecting to high quality and long-term support services, and we will find those for the folks that need them and connect them." So he's talking about homelessness there. And this is kind of a big deal, at least in terms of the conversation around the homeless crisis, the homeless problem, because for a while, there was a very strong, very vocal message out there saying, hey, if we address homelessness as a problem, this is something that's happened nationally, but locally as well. If we point out that it's a problem that needs to be solved, that in some way is not compassionate to those folks who are out there on the streets. Many of them obviously are struggling with addiction, mental health issues, and other things. But this quote basically addresses what a lot of us have been saying for a long time, and a message that has been getting louder and louder, and that not only when homelessness becomes a big issue, does it affect the quality of life for everyday Denver citizens, but allowing or even in some ways encouraging people to live on the streets and engage in open air drug use is not compassionate at all. It's very discompassionate. So in that way, I think this is an acknowledgement, building on his previous discussions of homelessness, but that we're moving in the right direction, at least in terms of policy. Later in the article, they quote him saying he's done something historic. In the last 2 years, street homelessness in Denver has dropped by 45%. We've looked at the numbers in previous videos. They do bear that out, at least in terms of street homelessness, people living and sleeping on the street. That has had a significant drop. Still not out of the woods. It's still a problem if you go to certain areas in and around downtown Denver. But in this speech, Johnston isn't just saying, okay, mission accomplished. We reduced it by 45%. He's leading by saying, hey, we need to do a lot more to fix this. Then he touched on his vision for expanding housing and making it more affordable. A big part of this is going to be something we've also also touched on this channel before is converting 4 million square feet of vacant office space into new housing. It's not an easy thing to do. It's very hard to do. And for a while after this idea was pitched, right, when remote work started to become so ubiquitous that a lot of these office buildings, mostly downtown, were getting empty, people would say, well, turn it into housing. And then the response, very understandably from people who knew things, was, well, it's not just that easy. If a building is built as an office building, that's very different in terms of the infrastructure of the building than one built for housing. Big part of that is windows. Plumbing is a really, really big one. Think about it. Apartments, condos, everything needs their own bathroom or 2 bathrooms, sinks, showers, all that stuff. In an office building, you may have 1 kitchen and 1 set of bathrooms on any given level. So much bigger undertaking to gut those things. But essentially what the city and developers who are buying up this office space at a very, very big discount are saying now is, yeah, we know it's a big deal. We don't care. We're going to do it anyway because what else is our option? He also mentions that this housing should be accessible for middle-class Denverites, meaning I don't know if it's officially going to be affordable housing, but something in the middle of the bracket. It doesn't really do anybody any good if these office buildings are just converted to luxury condos. We have plenty of that, and that does very little to solve the housing crisis at a large scale. He mentions that the city's on track to deliver 12,000 units of income-restricted housing. So yes, it does fall into that affordable housing category in his first term, but that's only a fraction of the 40,000 some units that he says the city needs. He says the main ways they're going to get there is by tax incentives to build affordable housing and overhauling the permit process, which if anybody has tried to get a remodel or building permit in Denver the last 5-6 years, they know how broken that process has been. It has been nothing short of a nightmare, even for smaller projects. So that is a much needed overhaul. He says he recently launched a new permitting team meant to speed up development. Well, if that actually happens, that will be an important step into not just helping with affordable housing, but helping with a lot of things when it comes to Denver development. His new plan, which you may have seen before, is it's a process he says used to take 3 years, which in many cases it did. And his new promise is your permit will be done in 180 days or we'll refund you $10,000. We will keep an eye on how that program is rolling out. In the speech, he also mentioned and quite frankly pushed his new huge Vibrant Denver spending package. And the article notes it's $935 million. At the time of this video, that's actually gone up to about $950 million, so nearly $1 billion. And this is a bond that the city council is in the process of approving, but it looks like it's very likely to go on the ballot for voters to approve or deny this fall. Now, all this is happening at the same time as a $250 million budget deficit that Denver has to figure out. And unfortunately, one path they are having to take to address that is layoffs that are going to begin here August 18th. We're peeking at another Denverite article just for that. Denverite, by the way, is the best source for Denver news that I have found around. Absolutely fantastic. They do a great job of going in depth. This guy, Kyle Harris, does some really, really good deep research, and his articles are very explanatory. He's doing journalism, basically, which is a welcome sight here in 25. Now, Denver doesn't say how many jobs are actually going to be cut, but essentially they have to do something to address this deficit. This is $250 million, and they're going to try to do all of the layoffs in a 1-week period. So you got competing interests, right? You need infrastructure improvements, expansion, money. You need money to do all these things laid out in the Denver's plan, and at the same time, you need to save money on the other side. So he does not have an easy job. By the way, if it sounds like going through this, I'm like a full-scale Mike Johnston cheerleader, maybe I am. I don't know. I'm not very politically engaged, so I know there's a lot of people out there who are very unhappy with the mayor. Many of them comment on my YouTube videos, so I'm very aware of it. Is he doing a good job so far? Is he not? I don't even know, honestly. All I do is try to call him like I see him. So with something like this, I'm just giving you my honest takes on what I see. You may disagree. I may be wrong. I may be missing something or some things. Let me know. But I'm just trying to give this a fair shake based on where I see Denver as being currently and where I think it needs to go. And yes, I've invited the mayor on the channel to talk about it. So if you got a line to his office, hit me up. And so we're going to get to that nearly $1 billion spending package that looks like it's likely to go to voters. But before that, there's also been some other developments in money allocated to fix Denver, particularly downtown. So if you're in the know, that downtown has been the lightning rod and kind of the epicenter for all of this Denver criticism. All those those problems, those main issues I talked about, are the most prominent downtown. And criticism of Denver seems to be the most prominent when it's centered on downtown as well, which would make sense. And so recently, the mayor announced $100 million for a downtown revamp. Now, this is different from a bond or a tax hike or anything going to voters. This money was allocated by the Downtown Development Authority, which is a group that is in charge of over $500 million in money that's already been raised and allocated to help revitalize downtown. And you go, okay, well, hold on. There's a budget deficit. People are being laid off. $100 million bucks. Where's this money coming from? Oh yeah, they won't raise taxes. It's not coming out of the city budget. Well, this one's kind of interesting. The money here actually started being generated in 2008 with the Union Station remodel. So there was an agreement in place that the commercial activity that happens as part of the new Union Station, some of that will go into a fund to be allocated to revitalize Denver's downtown. So essentially, this money has already been generated by the redevelopment of Union Station. At least that's how I'm reading it. So where's this money going to go? Well, according to the mayor's office, 4 main places: increasing affordable housing, already talked about that, upgrading public parks and spaces, supporting local businesses, and activating downtown with large events and family activities. So kind of half infrastructure things and half housing and direct support to businesses. And 9 News here lays it out in a really helpful little article. So business support, you're seeing $2.7 million for a new downtown retail space for Green Spaces Market, $400,000 to renovate the Denver Immersive Repertory Theater. I don't know what that is. $640,000 to help milk tea people recently ranked best tea shop in Denver. Move to a larger, more visible 16th Street location. And there's some other ones. I don't know how this money's allocated. I don't know how these individual businesses won this money. There's probably another story there. But it's interesting that money from this fund is going directly to certain businesses. And as we've discussed before, downtown businesses have borne the brunt of a lot of these problems. And then housing, $17 million is going to what we talked about before. One direct project, office to residential conversion of the historic Symes building. Symes, I don't know how you say that. Creating 116 housing units that will be affordable housing, will be classified as such. And $14.5 million towards the conversion of the historic university building into 120 units of mixed income housing. And then we get to the big $950 million bond. So again, this is something. It hasn't been approved yet, but voters will have to approve it because it is a bond. And Denver says this is going to fix up infrastructure, mainly roads, bridges, parks, playgrounds, rec centers, and libraries without raising taxes. So it's a bond process, essentially a loan people can buy into. There's a payoff. Beyond that, talk to your CPA. I don't know. So this one's still a big question mark, but this is the sort of money it's probably going to take to redevelop Denver in a way that could make it what they call capital of the new West, that sort of thing. This is a lot of money. And if it is allocated properly, which I get, it's government, pretty big question mark there, could make some serious change. And Axios Denver has a breakdown of where this proposed $950 million would go. Well, nearly $90 million to 8th Avenue viaduct replacement and multimodal improvements. Let's just call that infrastructure. $75 million to a first responder safety training center, crime safety. $75 million for a new Marion Street underpass in Globeville, $70 million for the Park Hill Park build-out, which has been a long, storied saga at the old Park Hill Golf Course. I should probably just do a video on that because that one is confusing yet wild and has been in limbo for years. More viaducts, an affordable housing project for $50 million, $39 million for Red Rock's backstage expansion and accessibility improvements. And if you don't know, it seems kind of funny, but Red Rocks is owned by the city of Denver. $29 million for bridges over Cherry Creek. I believe that is somehow connected to the new River North theoretical development project. But if you just break it down by category, 25% of this would go to city facilities, 19% parks and recreation, 7% for housing and sheltering, 3% for health and human services, and other. When they discussed this at the city council, council member Daryl Watson pointed out $935 million is an extraordinary amount. He's correct, and it has grown. And the president of the council warned that the city's shrinking staff due to layoffs may not have capacity to pull it off, and noted that projects from Denver's 2017 bond are still still incomplete. That right there is a big, big question mark. If Denver's having to lay off employees, who's actually going to be in charge of coordinating and helping carry out all these things? It is a lot of money to allocate. And if all this stuff happens, great. But when she says projects from 2017 are still incomplete, it makes you wonder. So obviously, big, big question marks. When I look at this, first of all, we don't even know if the $950 million is going to be approved. That'll be a big, big question mark coming in the fall. But in terms of all this, in terms of the plan, in terms of capital of the New West and really revitalizing Denver and downtown, the plan looks good. The plan seems like they are trying to address the things that should be addressed and that a lot of people have yelled at me that Denver needs to address. Whether they can carry it out, though, of course, is the big, big question mark. So we're going to keep watching it on this channel. And if you have thoughts, I would love for you to weigh in. Let me know. And I mentioned that River North development a little bit back there. That's probably the biggest new development plan that's happened in Denver in a long, long time. I did a video on that. I'll link the most recent one here in case you haven't seen it and you're interested. Otherwise, thank you for watching. We'll talk soon.